All right, let's just jump right into this explainer and unravel the true drivers of business success. If you've ever found yourself wondering why some companies just seem to effortlessly print money while others are constantly scraping by, well, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're decoding Michael E. Porter's legendary 5 Forces framework. And look, this isn't just some academic theory. It is quite literally the ultimate lens for understanding where profits actually come from.
To really get why this matters, take a look at this number, 5.9%. That seemingly dismal figure was the average return on invested capital for the airline industry over a 15-year stretch. Airlines are glamorous, right? They're highly visible, they use cutting-edge technology, and yet, historically speaking, they've been pretty terrible at actually generating wealth for their investors.
Now compare that to the staggering 37.6% return generated by the soft drink industry. Soft drinks. We're basically talking about flavored sugar water here. It's a relatively mundane, low-tech space, yet it is wildly and consistently profitable.
And this data right here beautifully illustrates what we call the profitability mystery. Notice that massive glaring spread between the most and least profitable industries. Why in the world do unglamorous sectors, things like toiletries or enterprise software, make absolute fortunes, while highly visible ones, like airlines and hotels, struggle to even break even? Well, the answer isn't about having the smartest CEO or the flashiest product. It all comes down to industry structure. So, let's get into decoding the 5 forces beyond direct rivals. To solve this mystery, we first need to completely shatter a very common myth. We tend to think a strategist's only job is to cope with direct competition, but that view is way too narrow.
And that brings us to our decoder ring, Porter's 5 forces. As you can see, direct competitors sit right there in the middle, but they are surrounded by 4 other incredibly important forces: customers, suppliers, potential entrants, and substitute products. In an economic sense, every single one of these groups is a competitor fighting for a piece of your industry's profits. Together, these 5 forces determine exactly how much profit potential your business actually has.
Let's break this down, starting right at the top with the threat of new entrants. When new players even just think about jumping into your industry, they bring new capacity and a massive hunger for market share. Just the mere threat of that puts a heavy cap on how much profit the current players can make. Why? Because the incumbents suddenly have to hold down their prices or pump up their investments just to keep those newcomers out.
The crucial takeaway here is that incumbents actually have to spend real money to keep the drawbridge up. Take the specialty coffee market. Opening a local coffee shop, the entry barriers are honestly pretty low. Because of that, Starbucks is basically forced to aggressively and constantly invest in modernizing its stores, refreshing menus, and tweaking its app. They are strategically spending their profits to build a moat, keeping all those eager new coffee shops from chipping away at their market share.
Okay, swinging over to the left side, the bargaining power of suppliers. This is huge. Powerful suppliers can literally squeeze the profitability right out of your entire industry. If your suppliers start charging higher prices or subtly shifting their costs onto you, and you can't pass those hikes onto your own customers, well, your margins simply vanish.
The classic Microsoft example perfectly captures this dynamic. Think about PC makers like Dell or HP. They operate in a space with fierce, cutthroat, direct rivalry, fighting for every single customer. But then they get squeezed relentlessly by Microsoft, which is a highly concentrated, incredibly powerful supplier of the one thing they absolutely need, the operating system. The PC makers have almost zero negotiating leverage, so Microsoft ends up capturing a massive share of the value created by the entire PC industry. Now let's flip it and look at the right side. Powerful buyers act the exact same way, just in reverse. If your customers are massive, highly price-sensitive, or can easily switch to a competitor, they are going to use that leverage. They'll force down your prices or demand expensive extra services, and they'll extract that value directly from your bottom line. But here is the cool part. You can strategically sidestep this. Look at the heavy truck maker, PACCAR. Now, the heavy truck industry is usually brutal. You've got these massive, powerful fleet buyers constantly driving prices down. But PACCAR smartly said no thanks to those huge fleet buyers. Instead, they hyper-focused on passionate owner-operators. You know, the individual drivers who actually live in their cabs. Those guys are way less price-sensitive and care a lot more about customized, luxurious features. By targeting the right buyer, where the forces were weakest, PACCAR manages to charge a premium and sustain incredible profitability in a really tough market. Moving down to the bottom of the framework, we have the threat of substitutes. And honestly, this one is super sneaky. Substitutes are dangerous precisely because they are so easy to overlook. They often come out of left field from entirely different industries, like Zoom substituting for corporate travel or plastics substituting for aluminum. It's a silent threat that puts a hard ceiling on what you can charge. The music industry shows us exactly how devastating a substitute can be. When digital downloading first emerged, the major record labels resisted it hard, and Apple's iTunes stepped right into that vacuum. That technological shift from the computer sector created a perfect digital substitute for physical CDs. It permanently capsized the established profitability of the whole industry, shrinking the major labels down from 6 massive players to just 4. And finally, that brings us right back to the center: direct rivalry among existing competitors. This is the competition you already think about every day. But rivalry becomes highly destructive, like truly profit draining. Specifically when there are tons of competitors, when overall industry growth stalls out, or if exit barriers are so high that failing companies are basically trapped in the market.
Porter makes a really critical point here. If everyone in your space is just competing on price, it transfers profits straight from the industry to the customers. If all you're doing is discounting, nobody wins except the buyer. You are quite literally draining your own industry's profit pool.
Okay, moving on to formulating your strategy, the strategist's playbook. Because understanding these forces is great, but now let's talk about how to actually use this framework to build a winning playbook for your own business.
Porter basically hands us 3 distinct, incredibly powerful steps to drive long-term profits. Step 1, find a safe harbor. Position your company where the forces are weakest, exactly like Packard did. Step 2, look ahead. Anticipate industry shifts and exploit changes in the forces before your rivals even notice them. And step 3, don't just accept the hand you're dealt. Proactively change the structure of the game yourself.
Cisco is an absolute masterclass in that third step. Look at food service distribution. It used to be a super fragmented industry with really powerful suppliers and super low entry barriers. But Cisco didn't just play along. They reshaped the entire board by creating their own private label brands and offering these crucial value-added services like customized menu planning. Cisco massively reduced the power of their suppliers and made it ridiculously expensive for any newcomer to try and compete with them.
All right, let's quickly hit avoiding common pitfalls, factors versus forces. Before we wrap up, we absolutely have to talk about this distinction, because separating the fleeting trends of the day from true structural forces is where a lot of people mess up.
You know, it is incredibly easy to look at things like a booming industry growth rate or favorable government regulations or some sexy new technology and think, wow, what an attractive industry. But wait, those are just factors. They only actually matter in how they influence the 5 core forces. Amazing technology doesn't guarantee profit if buyer power is totally out of control, right?
Honestly, hyper-focusing on growth is probably one of the biggest causes of bad strategy out there. We all just naturally assume fast growth equals big profits. But again, look at the early PC industry. It grew explosively, it literally changed the world, but for the actual hardware manufacturers, it generated terrible returns. The fundamental forces, powerful suppliers like Intel and Microsoft, combined with brutal price rivalry, were completely stacked against them, no matter how fast the pie was growing.
So, the ultimate lesson from Porter's framework is this. You have to step back and analyze your industry quantitatively over a full business cycle. Think 3 to 5 years. Don't just rely on gut feelings or emotional judgments about whether an industry is simply good or bad or high-tech versus low-tech. You have to dig into those structural underpinnings.
Having decoded where profitability truly comes from, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. Take a hard look at your own company today. Which of these 5 forces is quietly siphoning profit from your bottom line right now? And more importantly, using the strategist's playbook, how are you going to reshape it tomorrow? Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer. Keep learning and keep reshaping your world.